Hi guys, and welcome to One More Page, a podcast for lovers of kids' books.
Packed full of interviews, book reviews and industry gossip, not to mention the occasional fart joke, One More Page is your fortnightly foray into the world of children's books.
Whether you're a kid, mum, dad, author, illustrator, teacher, librarian, or just one of those people who never grew up, this is the podcast for you. So, let's meet your hosts.
I'm Kate, and I like to recite large chunks of poetry in my loudest voice. It's not really one of the things my friends most appreciate about me.
I'm Liz, and I still check inside my chocolate wrapper, just in case there's a golden ticket.
And I'm Nat, and I speak monkey. That was monkey speak for I speak monkey. And this is...
One More Page!
So guys, big announcement. We are in a very exclusive recording studio today. We've been kicked out of our usual place because of a duplicate booking. And so we have set up shop in, are you ready for it? Liz's Kitchen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, coming to you live from the kitchen of Liz. It's One More Page. And also got the lovely pleasure of getting to meet Liz's kids today.
Yeah, and how much did they love you and Kate? Because you guys totally somehow are kind of on their wavelength. Like, you like the same stuff, you watch the same YouTube clips, you know, the same little dance moves, whatever that crazy dance was.
Yeah, we did have a little bit too much in common. You know, how old are your kids?
9 and 7.
Yeah, well, that just says a lot about me, but we'll just move on from there.
I think they mostly liked me because I brought chocolate.
Oh, and jelly beans.
And jelly beans.
Yeah, they'll be like, when can Kate come back over?
Yeah, you bought their love, Kate.
I kind of did, didn't I?
Good work. We are going to move on to our episode. So, Liz, what's going on?
So this episode is called You, Me, Everyone, and it's all about inclusiveness and diversity in kids' books.
Oh, so important. And it's awesome to see so much conversation about these topics in the children's book industry in general. Every kid from every walk of life should absolutely see themselves represented in the books they read. So, Kate, tell us about what we've got on the show today.
Yeah, it's a great show today. We're meeting Jess Walton, who wrote the picture book Introducing Teddy, and there's a really great story behind that. And in Kids Capers, we're going to chat to a whole bunch of our kid listeners to hear what they think about books and reading.
Awesome. Can't wait to get stuck into it. And also, guys, if you're wondering what the beautiful soundtrack happening behind us is, that's because Liz apparently lives in the middle of a cicada farm. There's like birds and crickets and I don't know what going on outside. So we're just going to say that it's like the atmospheric sounds of Liz's kitchen.
I think I can hear a plane coming.
Oh, planes as well. Yay, audio recording in Liz's kitchen. But first, it's time to throw out some of our One More Page love. So, Liz, who do you want to give a shout out to?
So today I'd like to give a shout out to one of my favourite kids book review websites. It's actually called Kids Book Review, and it was originally founded by Canberra-based author and illustrator Tanya McCartney, and she now has a whole team of people contributing book reviews. I really love the segment 12 Curly Questions, so you guys might have seen that. It's where they interview an author or an illustrator, and they basically just answer fun questions about their life, so you get to know them a bit better. And they update it every day, so there's always fresh content to check out as well. So if you want to have a look, the web address is kids-bookreview.com.
Awesome. That sounds cool. I'll have to check it out. All right, and now it's time for everybody's favourite part. It's our awesome guest interview. I'm super excited about this one, Kate.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this too. So today we get to meet Jess Walton. Hooray!
Woo!
Jess is a picture book author with the focus on representing different kinds of families in her stories. She's also a teacher, a non-fiction writer, and a real advocate for diversity and disabilities being represented in children's books.
So let's give a big One More Page welcome to Jess.
Hi Jess, thanks very much for coming on One More Page.
No worries. Thanks very much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So to start out with, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I'm a teacher, an English and humanities teacher, but I work as a casual relief teacher, so I'm in a different school every day pretty much. And I also write picture books. So I've written one which has been published called Introducing Teddy, and I'm working on a second book at the moment. And I am also starting to write a little bit about disability. I'm disabled myself. I'm a proud queer disabled woman. And yeah, I'm starting to branch out into writing articles and poetry about disability, which has been really really great this year. And I'm also a parent, so I've got two young kids. So I spend a bit of time at home with them during the week as well.
Wow, it sounds like you're really busy.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your book, Introducing Teddy.
So it's a picture book about a little boy named Errol, which is my son's name, and his best friend, a teddy bear. And the teddy is kind of working up the courage to tell her best friend that she's actually a girl teddy, not a boy teddy. And she's really, really worried that Errol won't want to be her friend anymore.
And so what made you want to write this story?
So when my son was about to be born, I started, like a lot of parents do at that stage, I started looking at what picture books I wanted to have on their shelf. And the first thing that I think a lot of parents do is go for the classics that they grew up with. So I had a few books that I had kind of treasured since I was a kid, Where the Wild Things Are, and, I had all of the Dr. Seuss books and, the things that I had grown up reading. And I also went and found other classics that people kind of think you should have on your shelf. And that was fine, but I noticed our family is a little bit different, as a lot of families are. My partner is gay and I'm bi. My dad is trans and I'm disabled. So I started to realize that people like us weren't kind of showing up in the picture books, the classic picture books that I had collected for my child. And I started to think about what kind of message that might send. And so I looked at basically creating a diverse picture book shelf to match the diversity of our family and also of the world at large. So that's how I kind of got interested in finding picture books with diverse characters. And the reason I wrote Introducing Teddy was that I couldn't find any picture books for really young kids that had transgender characters. And so I had a little bit of time at home with my son, and I decided after he was born and I had this 3 months at home, I decided that I would write something myself.
And I understand this book had quite an unusual beginning. Is it true that it started out as a Kickstarter project?
Yes. So I didn't approach any publishers at all with the idea for Introducing Teddy. I just assumed that they wouldn't be interested in it. I hadn't seen anything like this book from a major publisher or from any publisher. And so I just assumed that the only way to kind of make it happen would be to self-publish. And even then, I wasn't really sure whether there would be an audience for it and, whether, I should try and do crowdfunding. I was fairly new to the idea of crowdfunding myself, but when my partner and I started looking for picture books that had disabled characters and two mums and, things that reflected the diversity in our family, we ended up finding some self-published books that had been put up on Kickstarter. And one of them was about a family with two mums, and they did very well. The illustrations were beautiful. The story was lovely. And so I basically, once I'd seen that they'd been successful, we got our copy of the book. I looked at the quality of the printing. I thought this is really good. And I basically did the same things that they did. So I just used kind of their model for Introducing Teddy. So like them, I approached an illustrator because I'm not an illustrator myself, and said, I'd love to do a picture book with you. And thankfully, Dougal McPherson, who was the illustrator for Introducing Teddy, thankfully he said yes. And we started developing some ideas to kind of put up on the Kickstarter page to show, what the book would look like if we were successful, and what, some of the text would be. And so we put it on Kickstarter and said if we get enough funding, we'll print some copies in the US and send them out to our backers. And I was so nervous that it wouldn't work that my partner and I were talking about getting out a loan to be able to pay Dougal for his illustrations if it didn't work out. And so we made the Kickstarter campaign, as long as you possibly can, which I think is about 90 days, to give me time to kind of get the word out about the book and see whether, it could find an audience. And I think within about 6 days, we'd reached our target. And by the end of the campaign, we'd doubled the target. So we had a pretty substantial audience for the book. So our Kickstarter campaign was, a real success. And that led to us, we were contacted by publishers from all over the world. And we were also contacted by an agent in New York. And so we signed up with an agent. We thought it was a hoax email at first because we'd had a few of those through the Kickstarter, and then we realised that this was a legitimate literary agency. And so we signed up with them, and that was great because they helped us kind of navigate the publishing world. We had no experience with it, and we hadn't anticipated going through any mainstream publishers. And eventually Bloomsbury bought the rights to the book, and they published it worldwide in English. And we have a range of other publishers now around the world. I think Teddy's been been translated into 9 different languages so far. So it definitely got a lot bigger than I anticipated when we started that Kickstarter, and we were talking about what would happen if we didn't reach our target.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. What a fantastic stat. So all those original Kickstarter people, did they get their copies sent to them in the mail in the end?
Yes, so we did publish the Kickstarter edition, so we did self-publish that one, and it's lovely to have that edition because it kind of shows where Dougal and I were at with the story before we started working with Bloomsbury, and we're lucky to work with Sarah Shumway, who is an amazing editor at Bloomsbury, and that just really lifted the quality of the book, and it was just such an amazing privilege, I guess, to be able to work with someone like that, considering that I had, basically no experience as an author or with mainstream publishers. So I was very aware of how lucky I was during that whole process. And now we have the Kickstarter edition and the Bloomsbury edition that we can kind of compare side by side.
So you mentioned that there's a new book that you're working on. Probably it's a little bit secret, but can you give us at least a little hint of what it might be about?
Yeah, so the one that I would really love to see turn into a picture book is one about an amputee like me. So it's basically the picture book that I would have loved to have as a kid myself. Yeah. So that's kind of the book of my heart that I'm working on at the moment. And there are a few other ideas kind of floating around. I would like to write a picture book with 2 mums, and that would be kind of based around our family and a kind of busy, wild, fun, different kind of family. Yeah. So those are the ideas that I'm kind of working with at the moment.
Yeah, and I think it's probably pretty safe to say there's not a lot in the market at the moment that covers those topics.
Yeah, look, I am slowly getting more and more picture books that have disabled characters. There's an amazing picture book, Teddy Took the Train by Nikki Greenberg, and that is just such a wonderful book. The mum in the book is a wheelchair user, and it gets it so right. So that's one of our favourites. And there's also a book called A Family is a Family by Sarah O'Leary, illustrated by Kin Lang. And that has a whole range of different kinds of families represented in it. Similar to, I don't know if you've seen Just the Way We Are by Jessica Shervington, and that one's illustrated by Claire Robertson. And both of those are kind of picture books that have lots of different families represented, including disabled parent. But I am having a little more trouble finding picture books with disabled kids in them. There are a few out there, but the only picture book I have that has an amputee in it is The Very Wonky Donkey, which is one of our family favourites as well. And when we get to the page that shows the prosthetic leg, my son is always like, oh my God, just like mummy. So, I'm absolutely happy to be represented by a farting donkey. I think it's such a great book, and it definitely counts as, good amputee rep for me. But yeah, I would really love to have a few more on the shelf.
And what do you think the impact is when we don't have that sort of representation in picture books?
Yeah, well, I thought about that a lot when I was initially trying to find them and having trouble. And I remember sort of thinking about when I was growing up and realised at some point along the way that I was queer and never seeing that in any books. There is YA out there now with queer characters, LGBTI characters, and that's great. I mean, there's still not enough, but there's a lot more than when I was a teenager. And I just remember how powerful the message was, the absence of anyone like me from those books. And I certainly would never have expected to find an amputee in any of the novels I read as a kid or a teenager as well. So there was that kind of, I just basically didn't exist in literature. So occasionally you'd have like a pirate with one leg in a story, or I think, people would say, what about Tiny Tim? Or, people would kind of pull out these few examples of disabled characters that were either tragedies or villains, and, you just get these kinds of characters over and over again. But I never saw anyone who was actually like me. Yeah, so that was really isolating, and I didn't realise how much it was hurting me until I found a novel that had someone like me in it. So I remember the first time I read a book with a queer character, I just remember realizing how upset I was that I'd had nothing like that when I was younger, and realizing how important it would have been to me, and basically crying my way through that book, just seeing myself on the page.
So you touched a little bit earlier on villains with a disability, and it does seem like they come up quite a bit, especially in as well as in books, in movies, things like Batman and the like. What do you think about that, and what sort of message is that sending?
Well, I guess if you never see yourself as the hero, it just adds to that sense of otherness, that only certain people can kind of be the hero of the story. And that's a problem for a whole lot of marginalised and diverse communities. For example, I saw, How to Train Your Dragon had an amputee as the hero of the story. And that was so powerful for me as an adult watching that movie and just seeing them kind of saving the day and being the hero. I didn't realise how powerful that would actually be. And I think seeing yourself as the villain over and over again, you start to wonder what the link is between disability and evil in these films. I mean, are the people who are writing these books kind of, surrounded by evil, disabled people? Where's the fodder for these characters coming from? I wonder whether it might be that we like to try and explain in some way why someone might be evil or might be a villain. And so they feel like they need to have like this complicated thing or this, difficult thing in their past that's happened to them that might explain why they've, kind of left the right path. And I guess disability is kind of like a convenient go-to for some story writers, because, obviously if someone has lost their leg, there must be like a really angry person who suddenly wants to get, their revenge on the world, or I don't know.
All right, so it's nearly time to wrap up. But before we go, I just had one more question for you. If you had a child in front of you right now who feels like they're always picking up a book and they're just never finding themselves in the books that they read, what would you like to say to them? What would be the kind of take-home message for that child?
Just that it's not right that you can't find picture books that don't have you in them. So that would be the first thing I'd say, is that that's not fair and it's not right and it's not the way it should be. Everyone should have the opportunity to see themselves in the books that they read right from the very beginning. And sometimes the message that people who are underrepresented in picture books get is, well, you should write the story yourself. But, it shouldn't be something that you have to wait until you're grown up to write, and then kids shouldn't have to wait to see themselves represented. So things need to change quickly, and I think that publishers are starting to think about that and to try and improve the situation. But we need to do that faster. I think we need to get a whole lot of picture books out there with all kinds of disabilities represented as soon as we possibly can, all kinds of kids represented as soon as we can. So to those kids, I would say I think it will get better. I think we will get picture books that have more diversity in them and that will represent them. But yeah, they deserve to see themselves on the page, and hopefully very soon, before they get too much older, they will find that kind of first book that has someone like them on the page, because that moment is a very powerful thing, and those books are very important and we all deserve them.
Okay, well, unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I was just wondering before you go if you could tell us where we can find you online and on social media.
Yeah, sure. So my website is jessicawalton.com.au, and I have a Facebook page for Introducing Teddy. So it's just www.facebook.com/Introducing Teddy. And I'm on Twitter as Jess Healy Walton.
Okay, fantastic. We'll put all of that in the show notes as well in case any of our listeners want to listen to it. So thank you very much for your time. It was really interesting speaking to you.
Thanks so much for having me. It was great. Bye.
So that was fascinating, Kate. I love that Jess has such a passion for all kids being able to see themselves and their families reflected in the books that they read.
Yeah, absolutely. And while it's important for all authors to keep these things in the front of their minds, I think it's really great that authors like Jess, who have personal experience, are pioneering the change. Both my grandma and my dad have hereditary deafness, and with the looming possibility of it also affecting me, one of the first stories I ever wrote was about loss of the oral world. I think kids need to see themselves, but also kids need to see all types of other kids in the books that they read. Like, it's a real step towards inclusiveness and just generally appreciating all kinds of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, often our kids are a little bit sheltered in the worlds that they live. So, I mean, that's one of the wonderful things about books in general is they really open a window to other experiences.
And as always, One More Page has a guest interview next episode. So who will you be talking to then, Liz?
So next time I'll be chatting with Zanny Louise. Zanny is a very busy children's author with some beautiful picture books already out, like Archie and the Bear and Too Busy Sleeping. And this year she's got some exciting new books out, like a junior fiction series called Tiggy and the Magic Paintbrush. So we'll be chatting all about her books and where she gets her abundance of ideas from.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it.
So, speaking of awesome ideas and awesome books and awesome stories, now it's time for What You're Reading. So many great kids' books, so little time to read them all. But we do try. So, Liz, what have you read lately that you want to talk to us about?
Well, I've just read The Secrets We Share, which is a middle grade novel by Nova Wheatman, published by UQP. It's the sequel to The Secrets We Keep, which I also really loved, and it's about a girl called Clem whose house is destroyed by a fire. Now, this is a bit of a spoiler alert in case you haven't read the first book or if you're still reading that one. But in The Secrets We Share, Clem's mum is back with the family after 2 years apart. And so Clem is not only navigating her family being back together and her house being rebuilt, but she's finished year 6 and she has the start of high school to deal with. So there's lots of friendship dynamics to contend with. 2 of her closest friends have kind of hit it off with each other, so she's feeling a little bit left out. And then there's also a new boy on the scene called Matt, who's staying upstairs with her neighbour. He has a few troubles of his own, but he and Clem sort of start to form a friendship, and he introduces her to roof-topping, and that kind of forms one of my favourite scenes of the whole book. So I won't spoil it for you, but I highly recommend this book, and it's a fantastic read for kids who are kind of on that cusp of middle grade and YA, because it deals with lots of confusing feelings and periods of change, but it's still more focused on friends and family rather than relationships, and the writing is excellent. What about you, Kate?
I've been reading That's My Mum by Henriette Barclow, illustrated by Derek Bretzel, whatever it is. Sorry, Derek. This one's a little bit different because it's a bilingual picture book. So in my family's case, it's French and English because I'm trying to teach my kids French. But it's also available in heaps of other languages. It's published by Mantra Lingua, and they do a really great range of bilingual books in all sorts of languages. And you can also buy their talking pen. So if you don't speak a foreign language, the pen will read the book aloud in English and a foreign language. I love Mantra Lingua as a publisher. One of the things I love about them is that they do a really large range of picture books about a variety of cultures. So there's one called Deepak's Diwali. There's one, and I'm sorry for slaughtering this, called Ye Xian or something along those lines. Anyway, it's a Chinese take on the Cinderella story. Well, in fact, it's a traditional Chinese fairy tale that potentially the European fairy tale was partly based on.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, and even when they do traditional fairy stories like Little Red Riding Hood or whatever, the characters are often portrayed as people of colour rather than everybody in every story being white. So it's just great to see that sort of cultural diversity there. This particular story was based on the author's own experience as a parent, and it's about 2 kids from mixed-race families, and in each case the child doesn't look like one of their parents. So Mia has a black father and a white mother, and she is also quite dark-skinned, whereas her best friend Kai has a white father and a dark-skinned mother, and he himself appears white. So in each case, their mother doesn't look a lot like them. And whenever they go to the park or to school, people assume that their mothers are a babysitter or a nanny or something, which really upsets the kids. And in the end of the story, the kids figure out a really great way to resolve the issue. So even if you're not interested in bilingual books, I would totally recommend this book and Mantra Lingua in general because they have a really fantastic, culturally diverse range of books.
Yeah, cool. And I also think like just exposing kids, even if you're not trying to teach them a second language, exposing them to the existence of other languages and other cultures and other ways of telling stories is so important. Like they'll just gain so much just from being exposed to that kind of thing.
All right, so Nat, what are you reading this week?
So I've just read Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli, published by Scholastic. Now, I didn't know anything about this book when I picked it up. It popped up on my other books you'd like on my Kindle after I read Wonder, and then I saw it in a bookshop and I just really liked the cover. So I was a little underprepared for how moved I was going to be because I'm usually not the emotional kind, but It's about this free-spirited teenager called Stargirl starting at a high school for the first time after being homeschooled all her life. It's told from Leo's point of view, and it's a beautiful story about standing out and about the cruel fickleness of popularity, the thrill of a first love, and how the power of meeting one person can change your entire perspective on life and on yourself. Now, it's categorized as YA, but I think this is more because of the age of the characters, because they're in high school, and maybe the style of writing as opposed to the content. I mean, the main characters pretty much only share a bit of a smooch, so there's nothing really in there that I think would be, inappropriate for middle grade. So it's considered for ages 12 and up, but advanced younger readers can get a lot from it as well. But if you have any concerns, you can have a read yourself first, and trust me, you won't regret it. The writing is almost kind of lyrical, and Stargirl is portrayed in such a beautiful way through the eyes of Leo that she almost feels like some sort of mythical creature, but she's just a girl who's different. Like, that's it. It's just something that should be admired and treasured, and this book is an awesome celebration of nonconformity. I just ate it up because I'm a little of a nonconformist myself, as you may have noticed. It's more like an experience than a read, and if you look hard enough, you can pick it apart technically, but the message is just really, really beautiful. So I reckon pick it up and celebrate a little bit of weirdness.
Sounds really good. So do you think this is something good for maybe kids in about year 6, year 7, kind of that cusp of middle grade and YA?
Yeah, I think early high school, kids who are going through, when you go into high school and, everyone's trying to be the same, and, it's a real celebration of just being different, which I think is so important. And apparently they're these Stargirl societies have started up in schools where members are encouraged to develop their creativity and demonstrate random acts of kindness. And so, yeah, she's really inspired people that it's just okay to be different, and that's cool,
That's amazing.
Beautiful.
Love the sound of that. So now it's time to do one of our other favourite things besides read and talk about kids' books, give away free things. Yay! So Nat, what's our latest prize?
Well, today we've got 2 books to give away, The Book of Secrets and The Book of Answers, which are books 1 and 2 in the Ataban Cypher series. This is a fantasy adventure series for middle grade readers written by the talented A.L. Tate and published by Hachette, about a boy who sets out on a mission to deliver a mysterious coded manuscript. I'm sure you've all heard about it.
Oh, I'm actually super bummed that I can't enter this one because I've read the Book of Secrets, I loved it, and I'd really like to get my hand on the Book of Answers because it's only just out, I believe. To be in the running, visit our competitions page on our website at onemorepagepodcast.com/win. And to tie in with today's diversity theme, tell us in 25 words or less what you'd like to see more of in children's books.
All right, it's finally time for the kids' very own segment of the show. So off you go, adults. That's right. See ya. Kids, stuff your face with donuts, scooter down the hallway at midnight, and have an epic homemade slime fight with your friends, because it's time for Kids Capers! Liz never knows when to come in because she's just staring at me, waiting for me to finish whatever, because I just keep adding bits on every time we do this. And so
who knows what you're going to say, Nat? We just never know.
Are you done? Are you done? Is it my turn to talk?
It's a lovely surprise every time. Yes, it is time for Kids Capers. I'm very excited too. Yay! So what's happening this time, Nat?
Well, today for our You, Me, Everybody episode, I just wanted to have a good old chat with some everyday kids about books and reading and pretty much whatever came up. So some of our listeners bravely put up their hand and agreed to talk to me. Silly, silly children. Now, I think I'm pretty clever. I mean, just ask me. But quickly I learned that these kids are funnier, smarter, more interesting, and generally more charming than I'll ever be. So I don't think I'll be doing this ever again. But for now, let's dive into our melting pot of kids and see what they have to say.
Kids Capers!
Okay, guys. Well, first off, thanks for joining us here today. We have Jed, Emily, Alex, Louie, Theo, Luca, and Ava. My first question is just, what are you guys reading now?
Well, I just finished a book that I borrowed from the library. So it was called A Girl Called Al, and it's about a girl called Al. Everything's good at school, and then when she's stressed, she sees like frost patterns on her skin, and all her life she wanted to find out who her father was, and so could the frost patterns be related to her father? I read it, and it's really good.
At the moment, I'm reading a series called Wanda. Yeah, so it's about this kid named August, and he has craniofacial deformity, and the big thing that happens is that he decides to go to his first school. So he went there, and it's just about how he overcomes struggles and that kind of stuff in his school life.
What do you like about it?
I don't know. I like that it's a different kind of book. Like, usually the books that I read are all like adventure and like they have big battles with like mythical creatures and that kind of stuff.
Awesome. And what's a book that you'd recommend to other kids to read?
I would recommend some David William books because they're about the right age limit and language-wise books, and they're quite funny, and I think lots of people would enjoy reading them.
Yeah. What's your favourite book of his?
Grandpa's Great Escape.
I read The Beginning Woods by Malcolm McNeil. I really loved that one. It's all fantasy. It's about a boy called Max, and there's vanishing, so people are just vanishing clear off the face of the earth and just leaving piles of clothes behind.
Okay, guys, here's a hard one. What's your favourite book of all time?
Oh, I like the Alex Rider series. Probably my favourite one was Archangel.
And what was your favourite bit in Archangel?
When Alex Rider tries to escape from the island that he's trapped on and tries to warn the police that there's a criminal on the island.
Well, it's always been the Harry Potter ones for me. I've just always liked it because it has that sense of adventure and a mysterious world that just you can't think of or see on anything else besides a book, or it's just a truly magical book, and I love that. I love them all.
Captain Underpants. About two boys called George and Harold, and George hypnotizes their principal because he's really mean, and they first turned him into a chicken, then a monkey, and then Captain Underpants.
Is your principal a girl or a boy principal?
A girl.
Okay, so if you were going to turn her into something, what would you turn her into?
I'll turn her into Wedgie Woman.
Who's your favourite author?
Well, I've probably got top three. My top three favourite are probably Terry Pratchett, John Flanagan, and Jackie French.
And so if you could ask one of them a question, what question would you ask them?
Probably, if I was to ask Terry Pratchett something, how do you keep a series like Discworld, which has got I don't even know how many books. How do you keep it going, and how do you stop it from getting boring?
Okay, how about this one? When you're looking for books, what do you wish there was more of out there that you can't find?
Sometimes I read a book like The Beginning Woods, and I wish there was a sequel. So some books don't have sequels to it, but they're really good, and so they kind of should.
It's hard to explain because I like a lot of books and there's not a lot of things I would like them to add, but in a Harry Potter book I would like them to really add a flying chair. A chair that can fly and has its own mind and speaks. But I wish the chair could actually shapeshift, like it's a shape-shifting chair.
I just should have wished there was more books with the lead character as a girl. Usually people said like, all the books that boys like to read are where there's a boy as the main character. But actually, it's not that way. And I've read plenty of really, really good books where the lead character was a girl. And probably, I probably read quite a few where the lead character is a girl and is probably better than whatever a boy could do.
Okay, guys, so in today's day and age, you have heaps to choose from, right? You've got video games and movies and play on your iPad, all these things to choose from. So what is it about books that you love? Why do you still read books?
Well, don't get me wrong, I like movies and video games, but books, you can do things that you can't do in movies or video games. Like, in a book, characters can think and, you can hear their thoughts. But I actually quite like making up my own characters. I like picturing the characters in my head. Whenever I see books with the characters on top of them, I actually try not to look at them because I want to imagine my own characters and I want to imagine how they look like.
I think it's like you're learning at the same time and not just having your eyes bulged on your screen. It's good to read before bed because it calms you down.
I guess there's different stuff, like books offer more. Like, there's more books than there are movies. So say you wanted to find a movie about something really specific, and then you wanted to find a book about the same thing, and it was, like, really random and really out there, you're more likely to be able to find a book. So I like that books offer more, in a way.
One, they're educational, and most books are very interesting, and they're all very, very different. Not many of them are alike, and I like reading stuff just because it's fun, and you can find a book that suits you just right.
So with a book, you open up the book and you start reading, but you have to turn the page to figure out what happens next. Whereas in a movie, you're just sitting there the whole time looking at the screen. Sometimes I read a book and then I read it again, and so there's something new every time you read it.
Well, why do I still read books? I just love books. I like to read books, but I also like to play on my screen. So I love the stories, like there's twists and turns. You don't know what's going to happen next. Yeah.
All right, so if you could hang out with any character from a book for a day, who would it be?
Oh, I've got it in my head already. Dobby!
I probably would choose to hang out with the character from The Light Fantastic. His name's Rincewind, and it'd be cool to just watch him do all the magic, and yeah.
Would you do anything special? Would you get him to do any magic favors for you?
Yeah, I definitely would. I'd get him to make donuts magically appear. That would be a dream come true. Just infinite donuts for a whole day.
How about you, Jed? Who'd you hang out with?
Alex Rider.
And what would you guys do?
He would show me some gadgets.
And you, Luca?
Percy Jackson.
And what would you guys do?
Well, you know how he does that thing where he controls the water to make him swim on the water so he can go places?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's awesome. In a sense, he rides on the water.
He stand surfs.
Yeah, I don't really know that. I'd love to do that.
And Ava, who would you hang out with?
Grandpa from Grandpa's Great Escape.
What would you do together?
We would fly planes.
What about you, Louie?
Captain Underpants.
If he's going to come over and play for the weekend, what would you guys do together?
Well, he wouldn't really come over because he's too busy fighting crime with Wedgie power.
Okay, so what's next on the list, guys? What are you reading next?
Mum just got me some books from Booktopia, so I think I'm going to read the Maze Runner series.
Great books. Did she just get you the first one, or did you get all of them?
She got all of them.
What a good mum. You'll never have to watch TV again if mum just keeps ordering books from Booktopia and you just...
Yeah, I know.
You know, on Kindle, it's really good. You can buy a series of books. You can buy 3 books in one and that kind of stuff. And if I can't find one, I might read Percy Jackson again or maybe Artemis Fowl again.
So do you do that? If you can't find something that you like, do you tend to go back and read again ones that you've liked?
Yeah, and then once I finish them, either me or Mum look up on the internet books like this and stuff like that.
There's a book called Little Stars that I might start reading.
And do you know what it's about?
Yeah, it's about some people that run away to the circus, and then the people try to steal money from them, so they have to run away.
Well, I borrowed a book from the school library, and it's called Everything for a Dog.
Would you mind reading me just the blurb off the back?
Bone and his sister Squirrel are stray dogs born in a shed. Charlie is a boy who has suffered a terrible loss. All Henry has wanted is a dog of his own. Bone, Charlie, and Henry lead very different lives, but their stories connect in surprising ways.
Oh, that sounds really sweet. Well, that's it, guys. Time's up. Thanks so much for joining me on...
Kids Capers!
Oh, fantastic Kids Capers today, Nat. And I loved hearing that boy who is after good female characters. I think that's fantastic because there's this real kind of myth out there that boys are only going to enjoy books that have male protagonists. And actually, I do think it can be hard to convince some boys to read books that have girls on the cover, not because they won't like it, but because they have this idea that it's a girl thing, which... There are so many great books out there now with fantastic girl characters.
Totally. And I love that. I think the industry is so aware of this now, and authors too are coming up with great books that appeal to both. The A.L. Tate Attaban Cypher series, the main character's boy, yet there's these really strong female characters that are, they almost steal the show from Gabe.
They do steal the show, yeah.
And it's fabulous because lots of boys are going to get stuck into Attaban Cypher, yet will discover and probably root for these fabulous females.
All right, so now it's time for a listener question. What have we got this week, Liz?
So for this episode, we've received a message from Colin, and he's a primary school teacher. So let's find out what Colin wants to know.
Hi, I'm Colin and I'm a primary school teacher. I'm teaching year 6 this year after a break of 5 years, and I'm just wondering what books I might have missed for that age group since I last taught year 6.
Ooh, okay. Well, you missed a lot in the last 5 years, Mr. Colin, and whilst I can't catch you up completely because the middle grade market is on fire at the moment, I will do my best. So I guess it depends on why you want to know, because if it's so you can appear to know what's hot when you're hanging out with the cool kids in the playground, like, yo, Mr. Colin, then you need to know about some books out there and some series that all grade 6s are talking about, like the Treehouse series, Wonder, Alice Miranda, Friday Barnes, the Weirdo books, and the list just goes on, to be honest. But if you want to arm yourself with some recommendations for your kids, then here's a couple of ideas that may, be something that they haven't read yet. So for your lovers of social realism, you need to check out The Bone Sparrow by Zana Freyon. I'm sorry, Zana, if I pronounced that incorrectly. But be aware, it comes with a tearjerker warning. So have lots of tissues ready, and also be ready to have some really in-depth discussions afterwards with your students about immigration and the treatment of asylum seekers. For kids who are after a bit of a laugh, maybe try the Funny Kid books by Matt Stanton. So he's one of the guys that bought us the Monster Who Farts picture book series, which is really hilarious, and the Funny Kid books are definitely worth a read. And if you have a kid who eats up historical fiction, then a new Australian books are great. And the Deborah Abellis one, Teresa, is a great go-to. It's about a family from Malta, and that's like a place that not a lot of kids have even heard of, let alone read about. And then, of course, for your fantasy lovers, the hot book on everyone's lips at the moment is Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. So there you go, Mr. Colin. You have a lot of catch-up reading to do to make sure you're up to speed with your grade 6s. I hope that helps.
That's some great recommendations, Nat. I like that you've covered historical fiction, we've got a fantasy recommendation, social realism, comedy, bit of everything.
Well, it's for you, me, everyone today. So I wanted to give everybody a little shot.
Excellent work. Fantastic.
So now it's time for What's on Our Radar, where we hear about something great we've just discovered or something we're looking forward to. Kate, what's on your radar right now?
Well, okay, for me, the main thing that's actually on my radar is a me thing, and that is trying to organise a book launch. It's kind of exciting, but
stressful.
I've never done one before. I've been to some, but I'm not quite sure what to do. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a writer as well as a reader, and my first ever book is coming out in July, which is super exciting. It's a picture book called Finding Granny, published by EK Books and illustrated by the very talented Gwyneth Jones. So we're still kind of 3 and a bit months from publication, but there's like heaps of stuff to think about in the run-up. So of course, that includes a launch party. Hooray. So I'm busy planning and thinking, and keep an eye out for invites, Liz and Nat.
I'm excited. Will there be jugglers?
No.
Will there be food?
Will there be food? Yes, there will certainly be food.
Okay, I'll come.
I might try for wine as well.
As long as there's red cordial too, because that's my favourite. So don't forget, next time we'll be talking about all things ideas with author Zanny Louise.
Oh, I can't wait for that. And if you guys are loving what we're doing, can you help us out by going to iTunes, please, and leaving us a review? It's quick and it's easy, and it really helps us out heaps.
Wait, does that mean what I think it means? Is it finished already?
No, we want one more page.
Unfortunately, it's finished, but you can join us again in a fortnight's time for
One more page!
Thanks for listening to this episode of One More Page. Read the show notes and find all our episodes at www.onemorepagepodcast.com. Don't forget, you can also subscribe via the iTunes Store or your favourite podcast app.
We love to receive listener questions and hear any kids' book news or reading recommendations. Chat with us on our Facebook page or find us on Twitter and Instagram at OneMorePageAU. You can also email us at onemorepagepodcast@gmail.com.
A big thank you to Marianne Koo, who does all of our illustrations. That's it from us this time, but we hope you can join us next time for one more episode of One More Page. Yeah, I know what you want. You want some bloopers. Well, first up, we've got Kate, thinking it's about time she had her turn on the bloopers reel.
I'm Kate, and I like to recite large chunks. I get to be on the bloopers this week.
Yep, Kate again, forgetting her co-host's name.
Oh, great segment today, Matt. Matt. Hi, Matt.
No worries, Bob. And finally, Nat, having a little bit of a cicada meltdown. But first, it's time to throw some of our one-page love someone's way. So, Liz, what do you want to give a shout-out to?
It's one more page.
What did I say? I cannot concentrate with these cicadas.
Nat is a total audio quality snob.
This is
in
actually...
case anybody has not noticed.
I'm having an audio meltdown with all this noise at the moment. I'm just going to ignore it. But first, it's time to throw some of our one more page love someone's way. So, Liz, who do you like? Seriously, it's like a rock band of cicadas.
So, guess what? Nat and Kate have gone. But girls, what did Kate leave behind?
Jelly beans.